And what I'm going to do is share my slides, because this is the end of module 1, which I didn't quite get to because we're having such great interaction with the group and discussions about some of those other things. But I will finish this off before we launch into our module 2. So you would have remembered, if I go back a slide here, we were just looking at the see-through effect and the visual deceit at this intersection where they created the or enhanced the visual deceit of that road with the see-through effect and the like. So, you know, that was really a case study, an example, real world, to show why road safety audits are really an important thing to just have in an organisation's practice. If you are doing alterations to the road network, it should be practice to have that independent safety review, even when you think you're only improving things. It's important to have that independent check on it. Of course, keep your questions and comments coming in. I'll be giving out some prizes. So we've already given out a couple there to some of our people who arrived early and pub trivia gurus. But over to the types of road safety audit. So types. So a road safety audit or a safe system audit, you know, it's an overarching description of a process. But a project obviously goes through a lot of phases, doesn't it? And we know that the phases of a project are in the sort of idea of conceiving the project idea and shaping it up in the concept designs and preliminary designs and detailed designs. You know, even beyond, before that, there's, you know, early planning discussions and thoughts. Then you're into building this thing, and then you go into having a road or a path or the like that is finished, and you open it, it's used and maintained, and then eventually it's probably decommissioned at some point way down the track. So you can sort of inject this road safety audit process or safe system audit process at these different stages. And for really, you know, big projects, there would be an expectation that you would be injecting that process, that safe system audit, road safety audit process at all of these stages. So in a large project, maybe the duplication of a road, you would expect possibly 4 or 5 safe system audits to happen throughout the life cycle of that project. For a small project, it might be just 1 safe system audit that's done. Or in some cases, it may be that no safe system audit is done, but you would want to have a really good think about the risks before making that decision that that's not required. Now, any of you that are sort of work with local controlling authorities, local governments and the like, you know, you'll be often faced with the challenges of, you know, small projects, very minimal budgets to do this and other constraints. So I appreciate the real world realities of this. And I'll talk to you in module 5 about some policies that local controlling authorities could put in place to sort of manage their own risks associated with potentially ad hoc decisions around when these audits are undertaken or not undertaken. But anyway, you can undertake an audit at different stages. And so a feasibility or concept stage safe system audit or road safety audit is it's where, like, I would often call it the planning audit. You're at a very high level or a fairly high level. This is very high level. You can see sort of the plan of a bypass here, and you know, you're thinking about, well, where are the interchanges, what form of interchanges are they, how are what are travel patterns going to change, how are people from up here going to get down to here now, and what, yeah, it's pretty big picture stuff. You then start to, get more clarity around your project, and you might be into having a preliminary design. It might be on a survey base, it might be on an aerial base, and you're at that stage doing what we call a preliminary stage road safety audit. You can see with that, you're getting into a bit more of the detail. You're looking at curve radii, you're looking at sort of the way lanes will configure and lane widths and the like. So you're getting a bit more ability to understand exactly what's happening in the project. Then you get into a detailed design audit, a detailed design stage audit, and that's where you get the lot. You get the long sections, cross sections, you get the drainage plan, signs, line marking plan. You get, you get hundreds of pages of documentation sometimes, and you're working through that and trying to understand what is going to be built and then what safety implications there could be as a result of that. You get pavement plans, you get signs and lines plans, you get the signal phasing diagrams if you've got signals in the job. So, you're getting quite a lot to work with. So we'll have Fergus Tate chat a little bit more about this, but I do sort of flag that if you're not somebody who does spend a lot of time with these types of detailed drawings and not able to fairly reasonably understand what's going on with those, you need, if you're asked to be part of a detailed design stage road safety audit, you want to ensure that you're with a team that have people that really can understand these and explain them and make sure everybody's on the same page. It's quite a technical exercise. Now, I put this in here, construction stage audits, traffic management stage audits, not because New Zealand does a lot of these, that it can be done in theory, that somebody would look at the traffic management scheme from a road safety audit perspective, which is wider than just conformance with codes of practice and the standard setups and the like. But there is sort of this other auditing of these schemes, which does more check at, is this conforming? Now that's not like the primary purpose of a road safety audit. Like a road safety audit, you'd be thinking about things that are somewhat irrelevant in terms of compliance. Often, like I'm just trying to think of an example here. Maybe let's go here. There's like a KFC on this corner. All right. Well, if somebody wants to get their chicken and you've blocked this off, they're still going to get there to get their chicken, aren't they? Like they will find their other way to do it, and they will take risks. And so you might be thinking, well, I'm actually worried that pedestrians are going to, actually walk through this area now, and the boom gates won't be down, and whatever it is. So that's not a particular compliance with standards issue. It's more thinking logically about how people are going to use this and what the dangers could be. But as I say, they're not commonplace in New Zealand. Pre-opening audit. Pre-opening audit is just before the ribbon's cut, road is open, and it's a check. Nothing glaring has been built that could pose a danger, and often with these, it is things like checking the height of guardrails that have been installed. That is a standards thing, but you're checking that mistakes just haven't been made, like they put the wrong RRPM colors down in the wrong spot, or they got the wrong sign in the wrong spot, or they marked something wrong. So these are the kind of things you're trying to pick up, and generally just checking, being that final check. And this is pre-opening audits are most often done on your multi or your $10, $100 million projects or $1 billion projects and the like, or the like. But here's a smaller one which could have probably used a pre-opening audit. Anybody pop it in the chat if you can see an issue there with this road in Auckland. And I'll just have a look at any comments that come in. Might fail the module 1 quiz event. Another Wally shows up. Yeah, it's a good point. No, there's no Wallies from here on. I'm on it. Made sure that wasn't the case. Right, let's see if anybody's starting to get their eye in on post-opening left turn through conflict. Hugo is on it, and a few others who maybe just don't have as quick internet as Hugo or as quick typing fingers. That's right. So we've got a turn conflict, which is that somebody in this lane can go straight and somebody in this lane can turn left, and we've sort of got that that conflict. Now you sort of go, oh, how can this happen? And unfortunately, there are more of these than I'd like to see in projects that sort of either open or are about to open. I have a colleague who was doing the post-opening, or the pre-opening road safety audit with another colleague for a major new motorway, and they did this on a dual exit. This was painted on a dual exit of a multi-billion-dollar road upgrade, and the minister was coming, the next day to open it. And yeah, well, there was a very I don't know if it was the next day the minister was coming. It was in a very short time frame, but the line marking crews were pretty quick. I mean, they got it wrong. Like the plans didn't have that. They just marked it wrong. Well, okay, and then we've got existing conditions audits and thematic audits. So existing conditions audits aren't done in New Zealand, as I said. That would just be referred to as a different process, crash reduction study, some sort of safety review or the like. But thematic audits can be done and are done. I've certainly done them myself around New Zealand on a number of occasions, mainly motorcycle audits that I was doing. But these are where you have a particular theme. Now, all road safety audits consider all road users, right? But the idea behind a thematic audit is just going into much, much further depth for a particular road user. And you actually get in the saddle on a bike, or you have a motorcyclist. I wasn't the motorcyclist, by the way. I'm a licensed motorcycle rider. I don't actively ride, but you get a specialist motorcyclist. You kit them up with microphones in their helmet so they can talk to a trailing car. You put instruments on their bike and cameras and things, and they're giving insights. You're looking particularly from that road user group. Or walking audits are often done to really hone in on the safety issues for pedestrians, going into areas and really seeing it from the perspective of the pedestrian. And also, you do delve into access in those, often in a road safety audit. So you're really drilling into some of those accessibility things that are really important as well. Okay, so that was the end of that presentation. So we just saw there the types of audit. I'm just going to change over my slides, and Kez, I'll let you tell me if there's any questions or any issues that have come up.
No questions as yet for that.
Okay. So I've got a couple of topics to run through for this module. we're already well progressed into it, but that's okay. I go through these fairly quickly. So I just told you about, the phases of a project that could be subject to a road safety audit or a safe system audit. The detailed design or the feasibility audit or the post-opening audit. But within each of those audits, you follow the same process, okay? It's just you are given different material to look at, different amounts of information, different types of designs, or the like, but the process remains the same. And so this little module is about the steps of a road safety audit. Now, a road safety audit / safe system audit, we have this 13-step process. And I'm going to take you through those 13 steps and also point you, of course, at where you can find this all documented so you can read it yourself if you want. So a road safety audit, a safe system audit, as you'll notice, I'm using those interchangeably at the moment. I will tell you when one applies to one specifically and doesn't apply to the other. But it has 13 steps in the New Zealand process. Other jurisdictions you'll find will only say 9 steps. The New Zealand process has a few little extra steps, which I really actually quite like. I think that they show a depth of understanding of why we do these audits and have integrated that into the process, but I'll take you through that. They take time. I can't stress this enough, that audits take time. And they're not this just quick flick together an audit and off you go. It's an actual process to go through. But they really do add value to the project. You saw some of the benefit cost ratios I presented before. And we know that it's this sort of combination of assurance for a local controlling authority or a road controlling authority to be assured that their community, their customers are going to be safe, or as safe as we possibly can do, that nothing has been missed, there's no glaring oversights, that somebody has had that absolute safety lens look over a project. And plus it's government commitment across many aspects of infrastructure. So, legally, you have to show this due process. And really, it has to be an integral part of design. There's absolutely no excuse for building something that has unnecessary death and serious injury built into it. That there's no excuse for that. One would argue even to have necessary death or serious injury is unacceptable. And we can play that debate out over a coffee or a beer next time I'm in New Zealand. It's a very interesting debate to go down because people don't like overtly saying that they've built that a standard has death and serious injury built into it, but often it does due to cost implications or public acceptance implications or like. But I digress. Any questions on that? And I'm going to ask you a question, although I think somebody might have already answered the question before I even asked it. I was going to say, does anybody see anything a little bit funny about that sign? A little bit. I'm going to come back to that, actually. I'll let people ponder that. I see some people popping some answers in there. And Kez, you're going to be kept on your toes here, trying to keep up to date as to who are our prize winners. Any questions in there that I have to deal with?
Yeah, there was a question from Quintin asking what time frame after construction completion would you expect a post-construction audit to take place?
Well, that's a very good question, and Kez, that's a prize-worthy question, I think.
Okay.
So Quentin can have a prize for that. Okay, there is no defined time frame in any of the guidance or documentation. It's as soon as you practically can is sort of all anybody says. So if you have, like, there is a pre-opening, okay, and that's when there is no live traffic on this road, but you don't often get that. Like, it's pretty rare you get a job which is not sort of constructed under live traffic. Yeah, okay, the big, massive, $1 billion jobs and $100 million jobs, yes, okay, you might be in that, but there's far, far more brownfield, kind of working in live traffic. So it's really hard to do that. So it reverts over to what they would call, this post-opening. A surveillance officer or somebody managing the site and the construction will do their own checks. They'll go, yep, all right, everything looks good. We're, clearing up our traffic management, and the post-opening audit. We've told them we're finishing, and they've scheduled it in the next few days. So there's no specifics there, and you try and get to it as quickly as you can.
That's great. And then I think this is about the picture there. Anatole was first to get in there about the directions sign seems to indicate motorists need to go around anti-clockwise around it. And there's a few other comments about the direction of the roundabout. Okay.
All right. Well, I will come back to that because I've popped that a couple of slides down the track. We've got the advanced thinkers in here. Usually I let people ponder this one for a while. So I will come back to it, but do note that for a prize there, yes.
Yeah.
I promise I will come back to it. There's Wally's back. Okay. Oh no, I'm still giving you clues on Wally's. Okay. Here are the 13 steps. And I will sort of take you through groups of these, but I'll talk them through briefly now. Okay, so we need to confirm the audit stage. I just talked to you about the stages of audits. That was the end of last session, which I happened to present at the start of this session. But, is this a detailed design? Is this that pre-opening or post-opening? And there is, and it's little in here, a bit hard to read, but there is a audit stage, an exemption form. And so if you're not doing audits, there is a New Zealand exemption form on the Wakatahi website, which basically you explain why you're not going to do an audit. Okay. So then the team is selected. So, the client. Now, the client is most likely to be a road controlling authority. They have said, okay, we're building this or planning this new roundabout. We're going to do audits at these stages. Now they go, right, we need somebody to do this audit. And so they will then approach a safe system audit team leader or a consultancy that they know has the skills to do that, or some group that is independent from the design and the management of this project, and they'll say, we'd like you to do this audit, and then a team will be formed. A team will be formed. We'll get into a little bit about, what the makeup of that team should be shortly, and I think a question just came in around, I think a question just came in around, can one person do an audit? I'll answer that shortly as well. So then an audit brief is prepared, a good description of what needs to be done and collecting all of that information together. And a commencement meeting is held. Now, that might be an online meeting or the like, but really all of this information is provided over to the audit team. And they can ask lots of questions, get their head around things, and there's lots of good discussion, everybody getting on the same page. Background information is reviewed. The safe system audit team is, sometimes you spend weeks at the desk and looking through plans and making notes and comments and highlighting things. Yeah, I say weeks. So these are on really massive projects. It wouldn't take that long for a small project. Site inspection. So then you actually go out to the site. The team goes out there. They look at the site during the day. They look at the site at night. Then there's this thing, and this is a New Zealand only thing. I love it though. Got a debrief meeting. And this is before the report is written, that the audit team will go and sit with the designer and the client and say, well, this is what we've seen and what we've found, and this is what we're thinking at the moment. And they can discuss this. Now, some people get very, some people say, oh no, that's not good. The auditor should be just, putting down their findings. But I think this is recognition that this process is all about continuing improvement and really working together to get the best safety outcome we possibly can. It's not a combative, it's not like you've been financially audited and you're cowering and thinking, oh my God, what are they going to find? And they don't talk to you and then they come back with all their findings. No, actually, I've never been financially audited. I don't know what they actually do, but that's what they do in the movies. No, this is a collaborative exercise to get the best safety outcome we possibly can. Then the report is written. Then the designer or could be project manager responds to the report, because the report's going to say, here are the issues we found, here are recommendations we're making. And the designer says, well, that's great, we'll do those ones. We cannot do these three. That our budget just does not meet that. However, maybe we can do these other things instead. And that's all fine, right? Because remember, it's about doing the best we can in a practical sense. Then the road safety engineer or somebody with a really specialist safety lens within their client organization has their review of it, and the client's final decisions are made. The report is all tied up nicely and any changes are implemented. So that's the process.
There was quite a few comments on that, Ken.
Okay, I bet there was.
Just about a couple of comments about steps 6 and 7 descriptions perhaps being wrong.
Descriptions. Identify project audit stages required. Yeah. So I've snipped this directly out of the Wakatahi guide. So that looks like it's the same as that, isn't it? Yep. Yeah. Okay, so that's wrong.
And 7.
Provide that feedback to them. Well done. And it's the same on the next one.
And
I give Wakatahi a score of 11 out of 13. B plus.
So did we address the one person doing an audit for a small project?
I'll get to that now.
We're getting to that. And then there was just giving examples from previous session, RE value add of RSA. What circumstances may yield a no audit outcome? Yeah.
And that's another good question. And if that's somebody who hasn't got a prize today yet, they can have a prize for that. The UK, for example, any infrastructure change must have a road safety audit, right? Now, that leads to some pretty wild road safety audits happening, and not wild in the sense of, but they are changing the signs in a township from non-reflective signs to retroreflective signs. Road safety audit. Now, there probably might be some circumstances you could find where there may be some alteration and risk to that. It certainly doesn't not add value, but what value do we get for that, for the fact that we're going to have to pay, you know, a few $1,000s to get that process undertaken? Because we need to go through the process. It's not that somebody can just do a quick check. So this is where I say that you have to have a bit of a gauge, because I was just exactly saying before, you may not think it's going to impact on safety, but you know, it may, unintended consequences and the like. So it's a bit of a judgment call, but it's based on, I suppose, getting the insights from somebody with a bit more safety experience to make those decisions. But the other one is that even if you did decide for that signage scheme change to not, you know, it's like for like signs and like, not to get a road safety audit done, because the, you know, total project cost is $2,000, and your road safety audit's going to be, you know, $3,000 to you know, get an independent consultancy team in to do all of this, right? You're kind of going, is this really, you know, is this really right? But what you would want is still somebody to do a bit of this type of thinking around it. And there could be somebody internally. You wouldn't call it a road safety audit, but there would be some sort of thinking on everything. I don't know if I've answered that very well, but maybe I'll have a think about that and maybe write some specifics around what scenarios this could happen. I developed a risk assessment matrix and methodology for the Victorian government at one point to say, okay, well, you know, if you're not going to do a road safety audit, you've got to fill out this risk form and check these things to prove that, you know, it's not required. Some projects just use dollar value as a proxy, or sorry, some jurisdictions just use dollar value as a proxy. They say, hey, if the project's under 50 grand, it doesn't need any road safety audit. Now, I don't like that because it's not a risk-based approach, or they're just using dollars as proxy for risk, which isn't right in all circumstances. Yeah.
And Ken, Gary was just wondering, who is the client if the developer pays for the RSA, but the RCA is going to be the asset owner, and there's a disagreement on what action should be taken?
Yeah, no, a beautiful question again. Gee, this is a good group. Give Gary a prize. You're going to run out of prizes, but it's okay. I love it when we run out of prizes. The client is the end asset manager. So the road controlling authority in almost all cases. They may elect to delegate some of these responsibilities to others, but it would have to be a formal delegation of those decision-making duties. So common practice would be that the client, the end asset manager, dictates when audits need to happen for a developer. You know, you need to do it this stage, and this stage, right? But they would potentially delegate the selection of the team and the brief and the commencement meeting, and they may be involved in the commencement meeting, all to the developer. But when we get down here, it is very much the road controlling authority that is making final acceptance of any responses. So essentially, the developer will engage an auditor, and the client or the road controlling authority would dictate, you know, they have to have these qualifications and they have to have completed a safe system audit course, you know, and they have to have, you know, have this much experience or whatever it is. And then, you know, they go off, shop around and find that, and that's fair enough. Like, you don't want to, you know, we don't want to be mandating only some particular people can do this process. We need lots and lots of people doing this process. And but then the audit is done, it's handed back to the developer, and their developer's got their design team or whatever, and they say, yep, we'll do this, we can't 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 do this. And that then goes to the road controlling authority, and they go, well, actually, you have to do something about that, and you have to do something about that, and you have to do something about that. That's unacceptable. And it goes back and forth until there's some sort of resolution reached. And if it can't be reached, you end up in court. So that's the joys of working with developers, isn't it? Okay. So we've got an audit team, and an audit team consists of a lead, and the lead has to be somebody quite experienced. There's some guidance in the Wakatahi guide about that. Then you have auditors. You have a few auditors, and then you have these others, observers or trainees, and they may be people who haven't done the course, who are specialists in an area that they're not doing the audit, but they're telling you some very specific things about, I don't know, barriers or the like. So here we go. Tip 1, answering the question that came in before. Highly desirable that a team is used. Rare to use a one-person audit team, except for maybe small projects, low volume, low speed roads and the like. So, highly desirable is like the final step before it must be a team. So, there are circumstances where one-person audit teams can be done. Everybody needs to be independent. We've talked about that last one. You're all pretty good on that now. And only an experienced auditor with safe system experience should lead the audit team. So what does with safe system experience mean? Well, they're talking in the guidance, that they've got a proven track record of training and application of safe system. And you're getting some of this in this course, and there's the safe system assessment course. There's the safe system engineering workshop, which Wakatahi runs. There's lots of different things there, and then there's also lots of great sort of safe system projects happening in New Zealand. So the leader of that team should really be experienced in that application of safe system principles. Now, ideally, you do have this sort of broad mix in your audit team of different road safety experience. It could be technical design and road user behaviour and human factors and things like that. And then you'd have different professions, and you'd have different ages, and you'd have emphasis on different road users. You'd have male, female, other. You'd have this really rich diversity in your team, because you'll see all these different aspects to it. Practically, this is just often very hard to do because you may be working in a consultancy, or you've got a specific, and you to pull this together is quite a challenge. This was one team I'd pulled together an audit team with us three. And just happened that we're all engineers, and we all worked in a road authority for our first sort of 15 years of our career, the same road authority. And we all kind of look at the road the same way. So I was like, we're really not getting a major diversity here. So I asked Wendy to get involved. And Wendy is a bit older than us, female perspective, obviously. And she's a scooter rider, and she's not an engineer, and she just challenged us and gave us some different opinions on things, saw things differently, which made us sort of scratch our head a little bit. But that's okay. That's all part of a really good process. But as I say, the luxury of being able to sort of do this is challenging sometimes. Okay. The brief, you want to pull together a pretty good brief if you're engaging an auditor. You want to give them all the information. That commencement meeting is a good opportunity for that exchange, and they'll say, "Oh, have you done any traffic studies?" Or, "Do you know anything about pedestrian movements in this area?" You know, what happens when it rains? How's that drainage? You know, you can ask lots of these sort of questions you may not get in just the design they provide you. Inspect the site day and night. Okay, you want to get out there day and night. Why do we want to get out there day and night? Oh, here's one example, one reason why. There you go. You can see North Croydon up the road there. Very nicely obvious. Yep. There at night, we're not sure where North Croydon is, so we're losing our directional sign advantages. Okay, so sign retroreflectivity may be one. But we also have, I suppose, less obvious things sometimes. And let me think of a few examples for you. One that came up in an audit we were doing of a new alignment of a road, and we really got out there. We saw how it was all looking during the day, and at night we sort of had ourselves in the location where the road was going to be, and another road that was sort of very close parallel to it. The headlights were just directly in the eyes of the where this road was going to be. Okay, and we wouldn't have picked that up at night, but it was blinding. So, you know, then the recommendation was for some either alterations to where that alignment was, or some screening to block the headlight glare. That's an example. We probably wouldn't have picked that up just in daytime inspections and looking at the plans. Also, sometimes lighting can give a visual deceit. You know, in the day everything looks obvious. At night, there's just a line of lights just, you know, switches on, and you're like, oh, okay, that kind of looks like the road continues straight, but it doesn't. It actually goes around this curve here, or something like that. You might also find some points where the land use activity completely changes at night. You know, you could be in a very quiet, what you think is a warehouse district, and then you go there at night, or you discover one way or another that it's actually a nightclub area, and that, you know, all of these warehouses, there's lots of people around at night and potentially intoxicated, and, you know, it changes your idea of how risk may transpire at that location. So Kez is going to have the challenge of tracking back who first pointed out the fact that this little gap is in the wrong spot. So first question I have for you is, are there gaps in New Zealand roundabout directional signs? And the answer is yes, there are. And I reckon some of you are probably going, oh, I've probably driven past tens of thousands of those in my life. I never noticed the gap. It's part of the reason I put this in, because there are a lot of subtleties in the road environment that drivers and riders and walkers are really not ever consciously aware of, but they play a role. That gap is put in place to remind people of which way to drive around. There we go, that's how it should look. And you can see there, it's a reminder that we drive clockwise around roundabouts in New Zealand. Now, I suppose I'll give another prize out just to continue on this little conversation of why I'm showing it. Where do you think that this would present more risk in the road network than other locations? In Queenstown. I think Ben is yes, it's a tourist location. So if Queenstown was in there as a tourist location, I think that's valid. So maybe there are Renata and Ben can have prizes for that. But yeah, the point being that, you know, something like this, okay, if I was road safety auditing this and I saw that gap, the risk rating I would put on that would probably be negligible. In fact, I would probably just put it as a to note. And as I think I talked about, you can just put things in your audit as to note. You don't need to give them a risk. Why is that? Because I think that this sign in this location, don't get me wrong, it's near Wellington Airport. Near Wellington Airport? Yeah, it is near Wellington. But just where it is, to me, it's not going to cause death and serious injury, or the chance of it, that particular issue is very low. Like, is very, very low. I don't like it. It annoys me. It's interesting to know that there are these subtleties. But in terms of, you know, if we fixed up every one of these in New Zealand, we're not going to make a dent in our number of deaths and serious injury. We might make a little tiny risk reduction, maybe one life over the next, 50 years is saved or something like that, right? But it's wrong and it should be identified and changed, okay? But if you are, coming out of an airport from the rental car, so this is going into the airport from the side. If you're coming out of the airport, rental car, or it is, Queenstown, and you get people who don't drive roundabouts. This is the first one they've hit. Now I'm starting to get to the point where I might be actually giving it a genuine risk rating in the audit. That makes sense. So the whole point of this was because I like to put up little bits of random traffic engineering trivia. So we've got that, but it's more to talk about contextualizing risk and to remind you that, think about the context for road users. Is there a pub there? Is there a nightclub in this area? Is it going to have lots of tourists? Is it not? And it can just adjust your risk rating. It's still something that you picked up, but it might just adjust that. This one at the exit from Hobart Airport, I actually did put a risk rating on because it is the first one you hit after you get your rental car at Hobart International Airport. So some American arrives, they get in a car, they're on the wrong side of the road in their mind. They've never seen a roundabout in their life. This is the first thing they hit. Okay, we've got a scenario we've conjured up in our mind that's a bit worse, isn't it? Any comments and questions on that? Oh, actually, another good, sorry, I'm just reading it as a comment. Another good one there was motorway interchanges and the like. And that's a different way of thinking about risk because that's just the sheer exposure. Now, in some senses, your exposure is probably going to lessen your risk there because everybody's following the cars and there's always cars there. So it's hard to wrong way drive a roundabout when there's lots of cars already in there. But the volume means that there may be more chance because more people are using it and more chance of a crash happening and a few other things.
And there was a comment there about having two SH1 markings. Could be confusing.
Oh, that was way back here, wasn't it? Oh yeah, 2 ways to State Highway 1. Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. Yeah, well, it's sort of, yeah. Yep, fair enough. What's this? One would hope the design of the roundabout made it clear which way to go. Yeah, that's good as well. Like you can take all signs away usually, and people are able to navigate a road system if it's designed well. So, yeah. Simon's got State Highway 1's. It's like a T intersection of State Highway 1 and this other side road. That's why it's all State Highway 1. Anyway, we digress. I want to keep moving on because I want to talk about pedestrians after this. And anyway, the debrief meeting we talked about, that's before you write your report, getting all this good information, get some preliminary feedback, adjust, informal discussions on solutions. It's a collaborative effort to improve safety. It's pretty exciting. I like it. The audit report is written. Now, Wakatahi has given a template, a safe system audit report. It's on their website, download it. You are going to use this in this course, okay? Yeah, you can put your own branding on it, on there, so stick to the heading, stick to the format. Consistency across industry is key. You start playing with it in terms of getting rid of sections and the like, people will question if this is a conforming audit, I suppose. So, you know, there's descriptions of the project. You list the information provided. That's an important one. People sometimes miss that. And why is that important? Well, when you're sitting in the coroner's court being grilled as to when there's been an incident on a road that you have been the lead auditor for, it's very helpful to be able to point out that what was built was revision 10 of the design, and you did the audit on revision 1, as it says in the report, and here is revision 1. And the audit team did not even have a, see what ended up being planned. Now that's an issue in the right. They should be re-auditing if there's significant changes to it like that. But those sorts of things are sometimes important. List your team members, when the audit was carried out, and then your safety issues. So it's all in there. The fact that there is a template makes things easy. I don't need to take you through this, you just follow. There's a completion meeting, responses to the findings from the design of the engineer, finalising the report and implementing. In the Safe System Audit Guidelines from Qatar here, this is what we see. The risk rating, serious, significant, moderate, minor, and what the suggested action is. So if things are serious safety concern must be addressed and requires changes to avoid serious safety consequences. So, any of you who play in contracts and legal and the like, must is a must. These are important words. Should, it's softened a little bit, isn't it? But it's, and we really should be addressing this. And should and could. Okay, so the audit report's handed over to the project manager and they work away with it and they do all of that. Everybody should keep keep copies of it, including yourself as auditors. You should have a file of all your audits or have a good system to archive those, because you don't know when people come knocking and they want, they want to know what was done, what was looked at. There's been something that's happened. Your project manager needs to respond in writing to all the recommendations, and that really has to be part of this process. Technically, you don't need to send it back to the auditor, or the audit team, in terms of what you finally decided to do. But in the collaborative process, it should all play out that way, and everybody should get a copy. But technically, if you wanted to say thank you for your report, your job is done, and take me off your contact list and never talk to them again, that is acceptable. Remember, responding to these, well, in this world, I think everybody's pretty good at it. You get FOI'd, freedom of information, things will become public potentially. So always keep that in mind as you write responses to things. And as I say, they're good practice to get back to the audit team. Okay, so just a common misunderstanding, and I think I've covered this well. Auditors don't have special powers. So if you're the project manager and you see this audit report, it's been done to help reduce risk in your project. It's your project. You're responsible for what will and won't happen. The audit team doesn't have legislative power. They cannot force you to do anything. Okay, it's an advice piece. That's it. Now, as I say, legally, you get your own legal advice. But if you're not going to take any advice from experts in the field of safety for your project, you probably want to have a pretty good justification for not doing that. But it's your project. Okay, that's got us to a good point there, Kez. Anything I need to deal with now while I swap slides? And actually, you know what? I reckon it's coffee time.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. No questions here.
All right, well, good interaction from this group. So as a reward, I'm going to give you an extra minute on your coffee break. Back in 4 minutes for a chance, 3.5 minutes for a chance to win a prize. What's the name for a raised pedestrian crossing in Australia? And in my time, lots of time in New Zealand, obviously, doing lots of work, and I kept referring to them as, yes, wombat crossings, and everybody scratches their head. But actually, I think Liam was first in there in the Q&A. So we're monitoring both. Yeah, wombat crossing. All right, so that one's for Liam, I think. And Jenny was in there pretty quickly as well. We'll give Jenny a prize then. All right, Kez, can I keep going?
Yeah, recording's resumed.
Thank you. Okay, I'll be fairly quick on this. I might be able to give you a couple of minutes at the end, depending on how we go, to do your quiz for this session, because we've got a quiz, and to continue on your assignment if you haven't been able to find time to get into that. But what we do in an Austroads syllabus for a road safety audit course, and what Tahi's requirements of us and the like to conform with everything, is we go through particular road users, try to cover off all road users to give us just some insights into the safety needs and any particulars that we might need to be thinking about as road safety auditors for different road users. And I wanted to start with the most popular road user, as in the most of them, being pedestrians. And we're in an exciting time where I think people are very much coming around to understanding the importance of pedestrians in our road transport decision making. I think there has been a culture of pedestrians being an annoyance to a road design or the like, and now we're understanding the importance of designing for people, and people may be walking, they may be scooting, they may be riding or driving or the like. So we've got to think about everything. But anyway, okay, let's jump into a bit of this. And I do have some interactive stuff and some little things for you to be doing. And I know some of you are passionate advocates for pedestrian safety, so that's wonderful. And I encourage you to pop your comments into the chat as we go. So we're going to talk about some of the requirements for pedestrians for safe travel. I'll give you some really basic pedestrian safety 101 stuff. Some of you will be very onto it, and some of you might be getting a few basic insights to kick you off. Point you with some technical information. I really will just give examples of road safety audits and coronial investigations that I've led and other things associated with some crashes. Why am I doing that? Well, because I want you to be able to do that before the crash happens and have that knowledge and prevent it as a design or in a bit of the road network. And we'll talk about some treatments and their terminology. All right, I'm on a prize giving spree here, Kez. So 4 pedestrian groups at greatest risk, so or categories of pedestrian. Prizes for the 4. You can put, one at a time. You get 1 prize for each. There's one. Elderly, kids, yep. Disabled, yep. And drunk, done. A quick group. Drunk or intoxicated, drugs also. But there are highest risk group, but they're highest risk in slightly different ways. So elderly present quite a large proportion of death and serious injury, and at an individual perspective, they are at higher risk. Okay, the young, they don't present as much death and serious injury, but they have some characteristics that make them more higher risk, and it's basically their size and their dartiness. That they pop out from behind cars. They're quick. They chase a ball. They do those sorts of things. Interestingly, kids are able to withstand more force than most adults and the elderly in terms of impact, but the height that they are often struck means that it's a more severe injury in harder parts of the vehicle, and that increased likelihood in dartiness, as I said, and unpredictability and inability to cognitively process what's going on. Disabled don't present large numbers of death and serious injury. However, their individual risk is higher due to the fact that they can often be trapped on the road. They can't get there. They can't get up onto the curb. They can't cross at an appropriate location, or other issues like that. But in terms of numbers of pedestrians killed and seriously injured in New Zealand, intoxicated, far and away the biggest. That's our big. Okay, and we can get annoyed at that and say, well, they should take some personal responsibility, blah blah blah. Yeah, the reality is we need to factor that into our road safety audits, and we need to think about are there going to be higher levels of intoxicated people here, and what do we need to do with the infrastructure to cater for that?
Simon's just mentioned there that the low vision subset also presents considerations.
Yes, absolutely. So I suppose I put that in with, disabled or different levels of ability to move around, see, hear, and all of those factors. So, I mean, at a high level here, again, very basic principles. We can segregate. We can create areas that are only pedestrians or only motorized vehicles. We can separate in time or space, or we can integrate. And there are sort of high-level strategies to keep pedestrians safe when we are thinking about roads. So this is segregation in the sense of you shouldn't have any pedestrians on these roads. In fact, you're going to do everything you can to stop them getting on this road. I've done my fair share of trauma analysis of motorways, and unfortunately there is a fair bit of pedestrian trauma from people often getting out of cars, often getting out of taxis at weird hours of the morning, and going to the toilet and throwing up and doing those sorts of things and being struck or broken down vehicles or the like. But in theory, we shouldn't have pedestrians in these areas. And prize for the person who can tell me where that is. Yeah, Quinton's onto it. And see previous answer from, I can't remember who answered it before, Queenstown, yep. But, the idea there being that, well, no cars through an area is a legitimate way for us to segregate. Separation in time is basically, it's road space. It's used for one time by pedestrians, one time by motorised vehicles. So, signalised crossings and the like, scramble style crossings and the like as well. We've got a nice little snippet on there about the safety of, well, what's its official term? Actually, why am I going to tell you? You can tell me. Prize, official term for a crossing that you can cross either ways. Is this taught in primary school in New Zealand? Because I asked this to a Queensland group recently, just blank faces. Nobody had an idea. Every time I ask it to a New Zealand group, they come back in hordes. Jenny first there. I think, the Jenny's already. Kez.
I think Lizzie was first.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Very good.
Oh no! Oh no! Yeah. No,
it may come in your end different to mine. I like it, but it's over to you. Share out the prizes. A barn stands. Yeah, that's right.
I know Jenny was first. Sorry, I'm a bit behind. I'll have a look. There was lots come through.
Yeah, it's good. You got to predict that I'm going to ask a question and start typing before I even ask it, Gary. That's the key. And yeah, maybe Hugo's right. Maybe they just call it a scramble crossing in Queensland. Whoa, I've jumped ahead. Yeah, have a look at that snippet if you want a bit more intel. Okay, separation in space is that, creating of a pedestrian refuge, footpaths, separating, those. Now, pop this one in again as just a little bit of things that you should know as a road safety auditor. Are they the biggest road safety risks we've got out there? No. Got a good snippet on this one as well. If you have a Danish offset crossing, a staggered crossing, Z crossing, this is where you get a pedestrian to walk into a median, along a median, and cross. It's a good treatment. But you want to get it this way. It should Z this way. Got a Danish offset crossing. Why is that? Because the pedestrian crosses, walks looking at traffic, and then crosses again. Okay, now this is actually one that I pick up an amazing amount in road safety auditing in my career, that for one reason or another, it's been put in this way. And it's very easy to put it in the other way, and you just get that extra safety benefit that everybody's, eyeballing each other as they approach and cross. Some little tweaks. And there's debate out about the width of a refuge and all sorts of bits and pieces like that. You've got stuff in Part 15, there crossings of New Zealand guidance, but the rule of thumb should be, as an auditor, you might look on, does this meet standards and guidelines? But for me, I go, okay, what's that width, right? Okay. If I was pushing a pram, or, if we had a father or a mother pushing a pram, we don't want to have to either have them or their kid in live traffic. If I was on a bike and I was crossing at this point, would my wheels be out? These are kind of just logical ways to think about it. You might go, well, actually, we get lots of pedestrians crossing here, so there's going to be, a throng of them, and they're not going to fit in there. So contextualize it, think about it. Are we thinking about all the different mobility devices? Are they going to have space to? So separation is also, could do it with pedestrian overpasses. I just want to be clear, though, that a pedestrian overpass is not necessarily like the ultimate safety feature for pedestrians. This one used to be near a government office I worked in, and I was always amazed at the number of people who just didn't use it. They just walked straight across the road. And and then I get to, this location and I want to go over, get something from the service station. What do? I walk across the road. I mean, I'm not going to go up this massive thing and down this massive thing. And the thing is that it can be a good feature for maybe the kids from the nearby school, because that's what they cross, and hopefully there's some, education and encouragement by the teachers in making everybody use it. But don't fool yourself into thinking because that feature's there is no pedestrians. Now, shared zones. Who's that? Oh, yeah, anybody know where that is, actually? It's a bit of a tougher one, although some of you, I think, live in this city. Yeah, Matt's on it. Well done, Matt. It is Hamilton. That's from Jeanette, that picture. Okay, a shared zone is an example of integration, and a shared zone is where pedestrians have priority throughout the whole area. Vehicles can go in there, but must give way throughout the whole area to motorised vehicles. There's a view from sort of the top of it, and you can see that it's a environment where pedestrians would have priority. In terms of the advice given in a design guide sense for shared zones, don't get shared zones and shared paths mixed up, right? Shared zone is this legal entity of a space where pedestrians have priority over vehicles. And a shared path is like a path that pedestrians and cyclists would use. Shared zones, but basically the guidance says, make it not look like a road, right? I love that. I love that sort of simplistic design guidance. Just make it not look like a road. And I think they've done a really good job here, because you've got, plantings and things and pavings, and it's different shapes. And you really would feel like, should I be driving here? And that's just massive wins for the design of a shared zone. If a driver says, am I even allowed to drive here? That's great. I want to give you some specifics now, just a few things that pop up in audits and how to start thinking about that. So can we see pedestrians crossing? Have we got sight lines for the crossing point? And I pop this one up particularly because, well, we've got vegetation, and that's something that we need to think about as road safety auditors, not just when the facility is open, but when things grow, are we going to block sight lines? Are we going to have trouble with that? What type of planting is it and the like? But on slip lanes, it's another interesting hot topic for debate in industry of what are the safe features. And the reason for that is, as you approach here, or somebody approaches here in a vehicle, they're looking out that way, aren't they? Because they want to see if they can put the foot down and go. And in this case, we've got a pedestrian who's crossing, and that has priority. And we have a conflict point with, I suppose, less alertness from the pedestrian, because they've got priority, they're just walking, vehicles should stop. We have a driver looking in the wrong direction but moving. It's not a nice scenario. So treatments and ways we can lessen that risk, where you can remove the slip lane, not happen at all. In some cases that's possible. Sometimes you do that, you literally cannot get a service vehicle around the corner or a larger vehicle. So raised crossings are incredibly effective in these locations, even though they look, but they're still highly effective. Raised and signalised. Yeah, so there's lots of options there. And I sort of mentioned that larger vehicle turning. I mean, you really need to think about where pedestrians are going to store to cross, and are we going to have large vehicles sweeping over areas where pedestrians might be? And we do see deaths and serious injuries occurring with swept past of larger vehicles, their back end tracking and catching a pedestrian, just waiting on the curb, and they get caught up in that. So we do need to think about that, ensure we've got that adequate space and the like. Sometimes as auditors, we need to be able to look at what's not there, not just what's there, and say, well, hang on a second, this route's going to now become a heavy vehicle bypass route. It does have some pedestrians there. It's got no pedestrian facilities. In winter, it's muddy, or somebody pushing a pram or in a mobility scooter or the like, they have no option but to be on the road, and we've got existing risk, and we're going to increase that risk by pumping a whole lot of heavy vehicles down this route. And another example there. Hang on, have we got the gap in our roundabout sign in the right spot? Yes, we do. Well done. There you go. You're never going to be able to drive past a roundabout directional sign without looking for a gap now. So there's a term we use a lot, and a lot of you already use this term. It's called pedestrian desire line. The desire line is a straight line from A to B, a straight line from where the pedestrian is to where they want to end up. Pedestrians do not like going off their desire line, and in fact, they will just do anything they can to stay on their desire line. So here's a classic example. I've got a pedestrian here. They want to go to the station, which is just over there. They've started there, and they're taking their desire line. Now, interestingly, somebody's put a pedestrian fence there to try to stop exactly this. What this pedestrian does is walk along the road on the wrong side of the pedestrian fence until the gap. And that's important for us to think about as auditors, because our role is to look not at, in theory, if everybody follows what you're trying to make them do, but what are people genuinely going to do with this facility? And I'm not a fan of pedestrian fencing in many locations. Very small targeted bits can be used, but it can, and it does, make people walk on the road exposed to vehicles quite often. When it's put, there, and it traps a desire line, for example. So be aware of that as you think about a scheme. The places I do like pedestrian fencing are not to corral pedestrians like sheep. Like, that's not, I don't like that at all, for a number of reasons. I think there are safety implications to that with the trapping onto the road, but it's also just a horrible way to really manage your people and your community by corralling. But, the places I do like pedestrian fencing, outside pubs, and it's not to stop people crossing at certain locations. It's a containment device, because I've done 2 coronial investigations of fatalities involving people exiting drinking establishments. One of them was a fight. There was people fighting, and they came out and they sprawled out onto the road. 2 of them were killed. There was more people involved. The other was slightly unclear. I think that the gentleman sort of just tripped and fell or something out as he was coming down the stairs onto the road and killed. This is where a pedestrian fence is, it's just a containment device for that particular point of hazard. So that's, again, sort of thinking as an order. The other one is around school gates, and the same thing. I mean, kids chasing balls, playing, whatever they're doing, they're just, there's a point, but they're all coming out. It's, there's chance that they're going to, so again, containment facility. And you know, occasionally there's a little bit of very targeted, well thought through design use of it in other locations just to get a slight alteration in where a pedestrian might go. But I would use that sparingly. Is my answer. Any questions or comments that I need to deal with there, Kez?
Sorry, struggling to unmute myself then. Lots of comments about that, which I think mostly you've covered. Lots of people commenting on the pictures and experiences. Renata was involved in a study of a fatality where a pedestrian was killed, and one of the conclusions was that the highway broke the link previously used by pedestrians, and it wasn't accounted for during the design. So yeah, just lots of comments and experiences, really. There's lots of engagement there. It's great.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just reading through a few of them. Yeah, I mean, that's a classic example of Renata's one there of, you know, how early feasibility stage audits can be really beneficial in that sense of breaking links of community, you know, larger desire lines and ways people get to and from places and the like. So that's a good one. Thinking about, yeah, pedestrians climb fence, absolutely. They'll climb the fence, they'll jump the fence, they'll, yeah, all sorts of stuff will happen. Okay. Yeah, I like this one. They didn't call it design line. This was, I grabbed this off social media. They got it, you know, user experience, but you know, like that is pedestrian design line right there, isn't it? And there's lots of examples of it. And there is one about, like Renata said there, of a road, you know, segregating or chopping off the residential area from the industrial area, and all the workers just jump the road. I mean, it's an international example, but you know, again, if we could get in there. Okay, another tragic incident. I just want to walk you through, have a bit of a chat about what we can learn as auditors. So this is the view a car would have. The next photo I'm going to show you is standing just behind here in this little curb out stand. So let's jump to that location now, facing across the road. So that's sort of a pedestrian look. So who has priority? Who has right of way there? Who's technically, who should be giving way to who? Yes, so cars have priority. Well done, well done. But within about 5 minutes of getting there with a colleague that we were investigating an incident, we saw this, and we saw it continue over the next hour, where it was a bit random. Like these two guys pretty much didn't look and just walked across, because subconsciously, or we didn't talk to them and find out, but subconsciously, it's priority for them. That's their priority. So the one thing I want always to be clear is priority. Confusion of priority presents us with danger, and if we can be very clear, you know, that's important. So this was an interesting one. I like the treatment in the sense of a threshold treatment. So, you know, vehicles turning off a more major road onto a side road, they hit something that slows them down. It can be used as a gateway into an area to slow people down. But they were concerned that it may be perceived as a pedestrian crossing, priority for pedestrians. And then they decided to, instead of using white, they would use yellow to stop that confusion. At which point I sort of said, I think we're thinking a bit too much of the general public if we think that they know that yellow is a warning colour and white is a regulatory colour, and that they would consciously or subconsciously be able to make that differentiation. So again, I just think confusion of priority is still there. The fact that it's raised lessens risks significantly. Nuances of road rules in different jurisdictions are just chaotic in this environment, because turning in should give way, but exiting technically doesn't. It's all rough, but it could be cleared up very easily. And if it's not going to be, priority for pedestrians, you can create these scenarios that are clearer. That I think does a much better job of achieving the same outcome, but not giving any potential for a pedestrian to think that they have some sort of legal priority across the whole road. Or vice versa, it could have been just marked as a pedestrian crossing, and that would have been great too. Now, airports are just like an absolute treasure trove of road safety audit training course material for me. Like, I'd almost do a whole training course on airports and their unique traffic design and management. And I think it's due to some different legislation, and they're their own entity. But anyway, here's another confusion of priority. You walk out of Launceston Airport and you got all the cars picking people up over here, and then you've got the taxis need to zoom through here. Luckily it's raised, but it's very confusing as to priority. I mean, technically it's the priority of the vehicles again, but geez, would you know that? It's very hard to know. And lots of examples of this, and I know New Zealand used to have a bit of a process of, or a bit of a fondness for courtesy crossings, and that's been discouraged now. It's not part of what would be done, because it is, it's just confusion, and you're trying to bank your safety on the confusion. So clear pedestrian crossings, ideally raised with the correct markings, is what we're looking for. Now, just back to those pre-opening / post-opening audits. I mean, some of the stuff you just scratch your head at and wonder how on earth people are making these mistakes. But the reality is that they do. And here's another example of that. Like, this is a pedestrian crossing, and they put the pedestrian crossing signs to point and direct pedestrians where they should cross. Those are the ones that are meant to point at the vehicles. But these are the things that sometimes happen. And we are another set of eyes just to make sure that, I suspect this got from the designer to the installer, and there was the installation issues. Here's one that doesn't have specifically things wrong with it from that sense, but I will ask you shortly to give me your thoughts on what could be improved if you had audited this when it was a design. So forget about the painting on the road, okay? That's just them trying to activate their street and those sort of things. So forget about that. We've got a pedestrian crossing here. I want you to imagine you're in the design stage audit team. So this hasn't been built yet. You're looking at the design. What do you think you could be tweaked in this design that would improve safety? Okay.
Ibrahim's there just asking, what is that chevron board for?
Yeah, okay. in one of the standards in this jurisdiction, any curb build out, anything raised in a roadway needs to have a hazard board or a marking to point drivers to not hit it at night. That's why it's there. But I can see lots of good, really great comments and broad thinking, and like any of these, without getting out on site, you don't have a good feel for it usually, and you ignore it. But I see somebody there, like raising it is absolutely great, and I really love the fact that so many people are saying it. But the one at sort of, I think, captures what I'm trying to sort of show you with small tweaks to improve safety is Gary there. Move the rubbish bin. So there was a design decision to put the planting and the rubbish bin on that side of the crossing. But if we have a kid or somebody in a wheelchair or somebody, short, crossing here, look at the vehicles coming up. And it's just that sightline impediment, right? We could have just altered this by still having it exactly the same, but just on the other side, if that's, if they need that there. It's a very small tweak. Opening up those sightlines can be very beneficial. Now, this one will probably operate fine. It's a fairly low speed environment. Would love to see it raised, as some of you said. That would be wonderful. But we want to continually eke out as much safety and as much risk reduction as we can in everything we do. And I think that might have been said by a couple of people. So, Kez, again, I'm just putting it all on you to make the big list of prize winners.
Oh yeah, there's lots of prizes.
Yeah, and I know some people are onto some specifics of the difference between a New Zealand crossing and an Australian crossing in this example with limit lines and those sort of things. So we won't get sort of caught up in design specifics. It's more the theme of thinking about risk and safety and tweaks and the like. One more, again, another tragic example I want to give you, so you're learning from these, and then I'll ask you to analyse a bit of a design. So this is a fatality, again, an investigation being done by myself and the team. So somebody stepped out from this location, was struck by a vehicle coming through here on this service road and killed. So this is what you sort of see from this point. I'll just show you another couple of views. So here, so that first photo was taken from here, looking that way. So here's sort of the vehicle into the service road. I'll go back a little bit further so you can see a bit more of the context of it. So we've got a 70 km/h road here, and that sort of low angle entry into a service road here. So there's a number of things. I see Nilu's put in trees blocking visibility, and that actually came out of our report. This fatality, I don't think the trees had any impact on that, but we did note it, so you can have a prize too. That's a bit of an issue. The interesting thing about this was when you're standing here, and this is probably another reason why site inspections are so important, because I can't get this across in a photo. But when you're standing here, you've got green for pedestrians, you've got this thing ticking away, and everything sort of draws you to want to step forward. Now, we don't have CCTV footage of this, and we don't have any, but just standing there, you sort of go, the pedestrians' focus, I feel, was on all of that. And they just took that one step, because that's all good priority. And this bit's not. And it was just, it's a combination of pedestrian see-through and your danger, and it's a real, it's kind of a nasty mix. The speed, as some of you are pointing out, is the factor that made this fatal. The speed of vehicles here. So the vehicles were going in fast, and then when they strike up, it was a fatal incident. So again, like, if we could have got in here as auditors before this, and they were building this intersection, the connection, you say, well, hang on, why have we not got pedestrian connection all the way through here? Whether it be signalised or something else, maybe like a wombat crossing or a raised pedestrian crossing. As you can see, they changed it there. Yeah, but it's just like, so this is reactive road safety. We will want to be into the point of building that from the start. Is the speed appropriate? No. Speed limit appropriate? No. I mean, the raisedness of it now makes the actual operating speeds appropriate at the crossing location, but yeah, so there we go. And that would have definitely saved that person's life. So I put this in, this is a bit wider, and New Zealand has some different operating, but some jurisdictions have actual legal requirements for checking accessibility, tactiles and the like. Road safety audit technically doesn't do that. Okay, so if the tactiles aren't there or they're there, I mean, technically an auditor only reports that if they feel that it's got reasonable chance to cause death or serious injury to the community. However, in practice in New Zealand, it's often integrated into the road safety audit because there's not good mechanisms for that other auditing. So I'll leave that with you because I want to get you to do this little exercise for me. So I'll explain it and then you can have a ponder and I'll read through and see if there's any questions or comments, and Kez can tell me anything else. But here's the road and here's the intersection. Now, maybe I want you to think about this one as a design as well, okay? Well, it is an existing road, so we can do it as that. But, you know, again, it's just thinking about, you'll be looking at designs often and trying to work out where crashes could happen. This one happens to be existing and it happens to have been there for a decent period of time. And unfortunately, there is a specific location. Don't guess yes, because I'm going to give you some options. There is a specific location here where there's been 5 pedestrian incidents, and 3 of them were serious, 2 were bordering on serious but minor, and there's been quite a few sort of near incidents. We've got, now that's reactive crash stuff, but again, we're trying to imagine this before it's built, but I'm going to give you some options as to where exactly that would be. So all your, actually, Kaz, I reckon we've got a poll for this. We don't need to, let me explain it and then we'll put the poll up. Don't, oh, I think, okay. Okay, people are just typing it in. I haven't managed this well. So one of these locations, pedestrians are presented with a dotted line and vehicles are a solid line. That's pretty common crash diagram scenario. So 1 is that a pedestrian's crossing there and a vehicle turns over. 2 is pedestrians crossing there and a vehicle turns over. 3 is vehicles coming out here, pedestrian crossing there. 4 that way, 5 that way. Let's have your guess. It's only one of these locations. Kids, you want to see if the poll comes up? We'll let them do a poll and I'll read back over. Okay.
Yep.
Chuck it in the poll. There's been a bit of chat. Chuck your guesses in. If the polls come up for you, we'll have a look. I think a lot of people are being influenced by some initial commentary and initial guesses in the chat, which I should have probably controlled better. My bad.
Ken, just Renata was asking, how certain would we be that a DDA audit will be undertaken?
Yeah, so it's a good question. This is a bit of a New Zealand gap, I would say, that it doesn't tend to get undertaken. Now, DDA, I write there, and some of you are probably going, what is this DDA you speak of? DDA stands for Disability Discrimination Act, and it's an actual act of legislation in Australia. New Zealand doesn't have a specific act of legislation like that. So the accessibility audit style stuff isn't, I suppose, as hard integrated as a particular process that would happen in an infrastructure project. So a lot of the weight of responsibility does get pushed to the audit team from that. So whereas I, in an audit in Australia, would often say, like just, at the end, to note, this is a finding, to note, the audit team noticed some discrepancies in tactiles and ramp grades, and our recommendation ensure that a DDA audit is undertaken, which they would likely have done anyway. But in New Zealand, it's sometimes that you actually have to delve into that. You say, tactiles didn't contrast the pavement, tactiles misaligned, ramp grade, insufficient for a mobility scooter to get up or the like. So you're actually presenting some of these comments, and it's really, I suppose, just a way that it's evolved in New Zealand. I'd like to see an actual dedicated accessibility, because I think that we may not have, as road safety auditors, the full skill set in understanding some of that. Certainly, I put my hand up and say I know some stuff. I've done some training in it, but there's certainly lots of aspects that I don't really fully understand and know. I don't think that they make any difference in our death and serious injury outcomes, but I think they're important for accessibility and for equity. Anyway, let's see. I'm going to end this, Kez. I'm going to share the results. People are liking 1 and 2, or not liking 1 and 2 might be the answer. And the answer on this is 2. So well done for those who sort of picked that. Don't feel bad if you didn't pick that, because put every one of those in, because there is a certain level of pedestrian risk in every one of those crash scenarios that I have put up. So you're still thinking along the right lines. But what are the particular characteristics of this that make it so much more risky? And I think actually, I think Simon was in there before we even sort of started discussing it and thinking about it, could sort of pick this and see it and be concerned by it. But the driver's looking right and turning then onto a position of pedestrians crossing. Now, when those lights are green for pedestrians, number 2 starts to walk. It also just happens to coincide with the time where there's a good gap for the left turner, because all the traffic got stopped. So it's a design issue. So it takes you a while to scratch your head and look at what on earth is going on with this. And the thing is that a pedestrian crossing should go into a refuge. This is if you've got a slip lane, into a refuge and then across. This one has basically gone directly over there. It's all a bit weird and funny. But somebody made that decision at some point, and it's cost 3 serious injuries. People are holding lifelong debilitating injuries associated with this, and some minor stuff, which is very impactful on people's lives. And we've got lots of near misses. And this should have gone out to here, then crossed to here. That's how it should look, and that's how it does look now. And again, like, the sad thing about this is that this is reactive. This is waiting for our community. And we as auditors are trying to step in there and get this sorted before it's ever built. So you might be thinking, wow, I am concerned that as an auditor, I might miss this sort of thing. And that's pretty serious. I want to say there is, this is a serious job we're doing, but we're doing it as a team. You have a lot of time. You will think about being a pedestrian walking this way. You'll think about being a car going here. You'll think about being a bike doing a right turn. You'll think about all of the movements and all of the road users and all of these things, right? You spend a good bit of time doing this. You do it as a group. You really get into it. You will find these issues. And we also have some checklists, some prompt lists to help you along your thinking and guide you. So don't get overly concerned by that at this stage, and you'll do pretty well. Get out there and look at it when it's got, particular times of different users, start of school time, end of school time, if there's schools around, if there's a football, oval there, try and see it on match day if you possibly can. And then, there's lots of options for ways we can lessen risk at pedestrian crossing facilities. So we've got often crossings on signalized pedestrian crossings. That's a pedestrian user-friendly intelligent crossing. So it's got a little thing up there that's basically, it's like when you walk up to the house at night and the lights go on, that same technology. It just holds the light red for cars while there's movement on the crossing. So that's pretty good. And they're nice, easy retrofits. So you can, suggest those if you've got, lots of people crossing, or an area you've got old people or kids or the like, that you think, oh, well, it would be good to hold that. Somebody in the traffic engineering world at some point in the past decided to go on a bird theme, and everybody followed with it. Toucan crossings are basically just that two can cross. I'm not making up these names. This is actually what they're called. So pedestrians and cyclists can cross. Toucan crossing. Pelican crossing. This is where your vehicle sees a red and then a flashing orange and then a green. So this is a pedestrian light controlled crossing. And the flashing orange is to warn for any pedestrians who are slow to cross or lagging and the like. And so it's that mix there. This was in like some website like World's 100 Funniest Road Signs. Makes complete sense to me, but anyway. I obviously thought it was funny. Pegasus crossings, there's certainly Pegasus crossings out there. It's a little nuance that a horse is a vehicle. So, this is just a legislative thing, really. It's hard to press a low button while you're on a horse, but horse is a vehicle, so it needs its own regulatory crossing location. So, did you know it's illegal to ride a horse when you're intoxicated, because that's drink driving technically, but it is not illegal to ride an intoxicated horse. Think about that. Yes, this is probably the point where you need to take me off stage, and I'll just finish by saying that we have updated all of the prompt lists. They used to be called checklists in part 6. The back of part 6 is just heaps of things for you to look at as an auditor, and they're categorized. So there's an area for pedestrians and cyclists, and it's just lots and lots of questions for you to think about. Lots of them you'll go, not applicable, because you're looking at an intersection and it's trying to cover every road environment, but some of them, it may spark your thinking. All right. We call them prompt lists because it's not a checklist that you would go through and just tick everything off and go, well, job done. No, they're just to prompt your thinking, spark ideas, spark about you thinking about lighting as well. Oh, it's drainage or pedestrian desire line. Which way will vehicles be looking when they turn? Vehicle drivers be looking when they turn? All of that sort of stuff. So it helps you. And that's probably all I want to get to. You can lead a horse to the fun. That's right. I think there may be laws against getting horses drunk, but if they drink themselves. All right. Enough, Kez. I've given not much time here. There is a quiz for people to do, isn't there?
Yeah, there is a quiz on the learning management system under module 2. Yeah, don't forget your assignment for module 1 is due on Monday. So.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Of course, get in contact at any point if you have questions, you need some help with something. Have a go at the quiz. If you struggle, you really, don't do well the first time, get in contact. We'll give you some coaching, then have another go at it. We only take your highest mark. You've got 3 attempts at it, so you should be fine. And we'll get into a little bit more challenging stuff into some of the next sessions. Thank you very much. You're a wonderful group in terms of the interaction. Thank you for so many comments. Thanks, Kez, for keeping track of all the prizes I keep giving out. And we will see you a little bit early for some more trivia on our next session, which must be what, next week? Kez, is it?
Yeah, next Tuesday, 10 a.m.
Look forward to it. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.